Dude, honestly, I feel like we're at a point right now that it's I feel like coming out as a Trump supporter is like the equivalent of coming out of the closet in the 1980s. That's really like
people will completely obliterate you.
Yeah, that's really what it's coming down. And I'm
Yeah.
not saying like I'm a Trump supporter or any of that stuff. Right? I'm not saying any of that stuff. Like I don't want Joe Biden to be president. I'm
Yeah.
pretty open about that. I think that
Yeah.
if somebody pointed a gun to my head and told me who to pick, I'll put it this way: I'm not picking Biden
Yeah.
under any set of circumstances.
It's tough.
But to come out and say that you're like gonna vote for Trump, you're like I feel like it's the equivalent of coming out of the closet in like 1995. And I'm
So
saying
true.
this to you because I want to hear your perspective as somebody who actually came out of the closet.
It's true. I mean,
Yes.
if you come out, if you say you support Trump, and I'm not saying I support Trump, I'm not going to claim anything necessarily.
No, yeah,
but,
you shouldn't, right?
But
There are a lot of things he does that are horrible that I really
right.
dislike. Yeah.
No, 100%. And but like for those who are bold about their beliefs and supporting Trump, if you post like like vote for Trump, whatever. I mean, and someone disagrees with you, like you get completely shit on.
You'll get flamed.
Dude,
Flamed.
You get like roasted in the comments too, like you're fucking racist, like for no reason, and it's I don't want to say for no reason because like I have friends who have feelings around Trump and they have validations. I don't want to like not validate.
You don't want to
that.
invalidate somebody's fears because
Right.
these fears they're still new and they still exist,
Right.
and not everybody is lucky enough to be in a community that's as supportive and open-minded
Right.
as we are. Like we're able to do jujitsu and we're in a community that
Right.
does not give a shit about anything. So people have these liberal echo chambers and these conservative echo chambers, and we have a different echo chamber where we have like a super tolerant echo chamber where nobody cares. So you think that nobody cares universally. So it's very weird when everyone's in their own echo chamber about stuff,
Yeah, and you made a point about like whenever you get out of social media earlier. Whenever COVID first happened, I couldn't fucking be on social media. I deleted all my apps. I took like
I did
month
after
off.
the BLM stuff.
Oh yeah,
after the
dude, it's
BLM.
so toxic. And when I did, I was like, everything's kind of good. Like
Everything's fine, yeah.
I mean, there is things that happen and they should be talked about and addressed, but it doesn't need to be in my face every day. And it's
no, and there's so much bad info. There's so much like false and bad info on both sides of the island. You have people from foreign countries that are trying to manipulate elections and put out like and change everybody's narrative to how they want, left and right. China's doing it for Biden, Russia's probably doing it for Trump, or they're definitely doing it for Trump.
Right.
So you don't really know what's true or not, and it can literally be designed to destabilize and divide an entire country.
Yeah.
So getting off that stuff is extremely important. While I post this live on Twitter, I'm telling you to not go on Twitter.
Yeah.
But seriously, you spend too much time on these things, you develop a very like toxic view of the world around you, and people start thinking that they're a lot more oppressed and things are a lot worse than they actually are. And I think in a lot of ways we're better and we're more evolved than we've ever been. We are more tolerant now than we have been in our entire history, and that's the message that needs to be brought forth.
Yeah, I mean, and anyone who knows me, I'm like so huge in just like positive messages and self-belief and all kinds of things like that. And I do think that people kind of manifest these things into their lives, and and they create problems that aren't there for themselves. Again, I'm not saying that things that shouldn't be addressed, or that I'm not saying that there aren't things that shouldn't be addressed, but like with the Trump thing, I actually posted. I have a blog, and I wrote an article. It said the protests are good, the riots are bad, and I blame Donald Trump, and here's why. And it was basically saying I wasn't even shitting on Donald Trump. Like people, it wasn't like looking back. I actually deleted it because it was an inflammatory title.
Okay.
But anyways, the actual like sentiment of the post was, I can understand like Donald Trump has done some things well. My problem with Donald Trump is that he's not a president for the people, and I think that he creates emotions, and
he inflames emotions.
He inflames
emotions, and that's not good for us as a society.
Right, exactly.
But I also don't think he's a fascist, and I think that if we
fascist.
elected Joe Biden 4 years from now, you will pave the way for a real fascist.
Yeah.
Whereas I think that if you bite the bullet and endure like 4 more years of Trump, the DNC is going to have to disband itself, and they're going to have to reassess how they do things, and then we're going to get an Andrew Yang in 4 years.
I actually like Andrew Yang a lot.
Yeah, and that's what we really need. That's what we really need. But if you like let the DNC just go off and do what they've been doing for years and years and decades on end, and then 4 years from now, when nothing changes under Biden, because it won't,
right?
the left and the Democrats are not going to vote. And just like in 2016, except the only difference is you're going to get a real fascist. Like, you ever saw V for Vendetta?
Yeah.
You're going to get the leader of England in V for Vendetta. Yeah. That's what we're going to get if you elect Biden in 4 years. I'm not trying to, like, go off on these, like, tangents or whatnot, but I'm giving my, like, my worst case scenario perspective on why I think Biden is a lot more dangerous. But let me ask you a question, though.
Yeah.
Being gay, do you feel as though 4 years of Trump or 4 years of, like, a Republican red wave will infringe upon your rights in any capacity?
Infringe upon my rights? I know. I think.
Or do you think it'll make your life more difficult, or you think it'll be harder for you to be accepted being who you are?
It's hard. It's hard for me to say because I personally have not had a bad experience. From the most conservative people I know, like, have gotten love.
Yeah.
And like Christian people, like, I've gotten love. And the thing with me is that I am white passing and I'm straight passing. So, like, if you don't know me, like, I can walk around and I can be a straight white guy and not have to worry about, like, whatever judgments anyone else might have. Only reason I say that is because I don't know I don't actually know what someone who comes across
that's like super flamboyant and they went to, like,
I don't know what they would experience.
Okay, so, like, if somebody was, like, super, like, flamboyant went to Taylor, Texas,
right?
How would they be received?
Right.
And so you don't know it. It's different. But also, if somebody walked around with a MAGA hat on in New York City, how would they be received?
Yeah.
So I think that extremism always just begets extremism.
Yeah, I agree. As far as, like, do I think that another 4 years of Donald Trump will affect me personally? Me personally, I don't think so. And just because I don't give a fuck. I mean,
you don't
like,
care, and you're confident enough with yourself that you don't care.
Yeah, and it's hard for me to answer that because
you can pass. Because you can pass and you're self-confident and you wrestled all your life. And if somebody fucked with you, you know that you can handle yourself and you could take care of business. So whatever somebody says about you or does, you don't feel unsafe because...
I don't feel unsafe.
You don't feel unsafe because you can handle yourself physically. I think that definitely changes the narrative. Just like I don't feel unsafe about the homeless stuff because I can handle myself physically.
Right.
So it changes everything. Like, being physically capable changes how you view the world.
Right.
100%. But just being somebody who grew up in a conservative, like, you grew up in, like, you didn't grow up in liberal cities for the most part. You grew up in mostly conservative white America.
Absolutely.
And being openly gay in conservative white America, do you feel as though you're treated any differently based on that?
Yeah. I have been.
Okay.
And it's the reason it's hard for me to answer is because between Trump and Biden, I almost said Obama. Between Trump and Biden, I'm not happy about either of those options. So I don't want it to make it seem like I'm, like, supporting either side because I really don't feel supportive of either side. But I don't think that another 4 years of Donald Trump would affect me. Now, as far as, like, living in a conservative city, I have experienced, like, when I lived in Troy. And I told you that story about I was the only person who supported LGBT rights. Yeah. And one of my good friends when I was living in Troy ran to my dad's classroom after that period and said, "Coach, did you know your kid, like, supports gay rights?" And my dad was super cool about it. He's like, "Well, why wouldn't he?" But but it's just funny because, like, these people, like, in these small towns like a Troy, Texas, they have a very singular point of view versus, like, you grew up in New York. And you can understand different sides of things and different people versus in Troy. I mean, it's all conservative and it's all anti this. And I say all that really just to say I think it probably depends. I really have not had a bad experience, like, in the past 4 years under this presidency. I have not personally had a bad experience, and I think that the media does inflame a lot of it.
I agree with you. I agree.
Yeah.
I think an interesting social experiment would be to go to, like, a small town being, like, super rainbowed out and just see how people treat you.
Yeah, I mean, you probably get some stares.
Yeah, just to see, like, if you really feel like you're being if you're gonna like feel unsafe because of who you are. I think that's the true experiment. Because you go to these small towns and you're like super rainbowed out, right? You know, and you like let it all fly, let the rainbow flag fly, you know, so to speak, right? Like, and people are cool.
Yeah.
It changes the whole narrative.
Right.
And you document that, and people need to know like what's actually happening and what the consensus is about all that stuff. That's what I think. I think that there's got to just be we just have to have honesty in terms of how we move forward and become a more unified country. Yeah. But I do agree, though, I think from a policy standpoint, man, I think Donald Trump might even be one of the least racist and least bigoted people from a policy standpoint. Yeah. But
I agree.
The fact that he his tweets and what he says is he just inflames people's emotions so much that it might not it doesn't do that justice, and it doesn't let people see that, you know.
Yeah, he doesn't unify people.
No, he does not at all.
Right.
He divides people to no
exactly
end.
Yeah, and that's my issue. I think if Donald Trump like came out and was just like vulnerable and was like, I want everyone to feel heard and loved. Like, can you imagine like the power that would have if Donald Trump like switched that narrative? I mean,
and I think he's actually not bad when he talks in person. He's not really that bad about that.
Yeah.
Like, he usually does sound pretty like open and cool and accepting of people when he talks in person.
Yeah.
And then there's the media that continues to inflame and twist everything he says. Yeah. But I think that Donald Trump should definitely be doing a much better job of conveying a unifying message, especially right now.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean,